now today's session, Managing Joomla Users with Fabrik, with the great Robbie Adair. She's from Houston, Texas, and her hobbies, to tell a bit about her, is 3D printing, cycling, and she also has an unmanned aircraft license. And I watched Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and I really suspect if you have such a hobby, you're planning to take over the world. So watch out. If you see aircrafts there 3D printed, then you know where they're coming from. But luckily, it's a bit in the future, so we have a few months left. And till then, we're very happy that we have Robbie here. She's a CEO of OS Training and Media A Team, which is also a sponsor here. She helped organizing the day. And yeah, the stage is yours, Robbie.
All right. So today what we're going to talk about is managing Joomla users with Fabrik. And let me get this over here. Great. All right. First, we'll do a little bit about me because, yes, I do like 3D printing. And yes, I do have my license to fly my unmanned drone. But I also am usually really busy. So I only get to fly that drone whenever I have to do video for a client. But it's a lot of fun. I have a website. I'll call it my redheaded stepchild website because I rarely get to go and update it at all. But I do try to put whenever I'm going to be speaking places on my own personal website. My business website is Media A Team. It's an agency where we do website design, obviously, website applications more than anything, I would say. And then we also do media, video production primarily. But we also have done some other things in the past. And October is going to be 19 years. I can't believe it. That's a long time, folks. About 5 or 6 years ago, I bought Fabrik, bought the copyright to Fabrik. It is open source. It's free out there, just like Joomla. So any of you can go and download it. So what we're going to do in here, you can download for free and replicate and test out yourself. And Fabrik Car, so we had an AR after Fabrik.com is where you can go to do that. Let's see. You can see, right? I'm not blocking anything. Good. And then OS Training, I bought over 1.5 years ago, and that's where we teach people how to build websites. So all different web platforms here. So you can learn how to do this in Joomla, WordPress, Drupal. You can learn all of them so you can do them all for your clients. And we actually have some things where you can learn tools that will help you with all of those as well. I'm one of the organizers of the JoomlaDay Texas event, and I'm one of the organizers of Houston Joomla user group, and then now also working with this fabulous team on JoomlaDay USA. And it has been a blessing because it is just, we're a very big committee and everyone has just been amazing on it. So what are we going to talk about in here today? And by the way, if you want to talk about it on Twitter, use our hashtag JDayUSA. Today we're going to, I'm just going to first tell you what Fabrik is, although I kind of have a feeling you know what Fabrik is if you're in my session. And I don't ever expect to have many people in my sessions because we're a pretty small niche community, Fabrik users out there. But if no one has used Fabrik, if you would just pop in the chat and just let us know that you've never used it. And I will try to give you a little bit more on the what is Fabrik part. And then I want to just kind of address why am I even doing this, right? Why am I telling you how you can manage Joomla users with Fabrik? I mean, there are reasons for why I'm going to show you this, particularly if you are, we've got someone, don't alter that. I won't alter the talk, but I will just keep in mind there's someone who's never used it before so that you will know what we're even talking about. Okay, good. So there are reasons why we would use that, why we would use it to manage our users. Particularly if we have built a Fabrik application already, we might need the ability to tie more information about our users to our other information in our application, and which we'll look at in here today. And then I'm going to actually show you what are the steps. If I want to manage my Joomla users through a Fabrik table, how do I do this? So we're going to go through the steps in here. And then there's a plugin, one of our form plugins called JUser, and you have to have that form plugin to make this work. And so I'm going to show you one where you can download it, but two, your options that you need to know about, the things you have to set, but the things that you may or may not use on this plugin. Then I also want to talk just a little bit about if I'm using Fabrik to manage my users, what am I doing with my Joomla user options as well? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then hopefully, membership directories are great for this, by the way, Ann. And hopefully we'll have plenty of time for questions. But like I said, I am notorious for giving you guys so much information. I can barely get through it, but we'll do it. First thing, what is Fabrik? For those of you who have not used Fabrik, I'm going to give you the high level what Fabrik is. Fabrik is an extension that you can install into Joomla. It only works with Joomla. And it allows you to build custom applications, because what Fabrik really lets you do is it allows you to talk directly to the database, even create tables, create joins between tables. When you create a table in the database, you also are automatically generated an input form for it, a view, a list view, and a details view of this table that you have. And you can create columns on that table, which we call elements. So when you first start using Fabrik, I feel like there's just a little bit of you have to get used to our terminology, what we call things. Once you understand the terminology and just kind of get that grip on what Fabrik is, you will see, you'll be amazed at what you can build. Basically anything you can imagine. And even if you're not a hardcore developer, I feel like Fabrik has enough WYSIWYG build to it that you can at least get an application going, and then you may hit points where you say, I need a dev to help me add some customization in places where you can inject PHP all through Fabrik. And so you may get to points, if you are not a developer yourself, where you're like, I might need to get somebody to help me with this little section. But I'm not a developer. I call myself, I'm just a meddler. I can possibly look at it and know what it does and change something, but I definitely am not writing any code from scratch, that's for sure. And so I call myself an integrator. And I was able to build some pretty amazing, like, private school portals and memberships directories and things like that. And it was only when I got so comfortable with it that I was able to say, I can do more with this. And that was when I started hitting places where then I had to like contact Rob and Hugh that were the developers and say, hey, I need help with this. The other thing that's really cool about Fabrik is because you're connecting straight to the database, and when you install it, you're going to be connected straight to your Joomla database. You also can connect to other databases. So you can have data in one database here, and then you can actually have data in another database, because maybe your client has an application they're already storing information in a MySQL database. You can actually go grab that information out of it if you want to, inject information into it. I also, like I've done where we have a Joomla site for a client, and then maybe they have a WordPress with a WooCommerce store, but their execs look at the Joomla dashboard that we built for them, where they're looking at things that are happening here, and they want to see how many products we have in WooCommerce, whatever. WordPress is MySQL. We just connected Fabrik over to it, went to the post and searched for products and counted them and gave them a display of it. The other thing that's really key with Fabrik and why it makes it so powerful for you to build web applications is because you have fine-grained access control. We use Joomla's access control. So you're using the built-in core access control, but we let you change like down to the element level, who can edit it, who can add it, who can delete it, who can see it, all of that. We give you fine-grained access control using Joomla's access. So this is just, I like this little slide. I was going to leave this one in here because it does say it's a WYSIWYG. That's why I told you, yes, it is WYSIWYG. You can start if you don't code at all, but you may eventually hit spots where you want to. And it's fully customizable. Our views out of the box, Fabrik is not beautiful. It tries to take on your template's color scheme and things like that, fonts, colors, all of your, we're trying to absorb as much of your template as possible, but then you can build custom templates on top of that. So all of our views, you can make custom templates of. You can have many different ones. So why in the world am I even talking to you about Joomla user management? We actually do this for a lot of clients. That's one thing. So I'm already doing this out there quite a bit. And so I wanted to explain the power that we get when we do it. So first of all, you want to get more information on each user. So we've been doing this pre-custom fields, okay? I know with custom fields now, that did solve a problem for a lot of people when they just wanted, I just need company name and address on on a user. And so now you can do this with custom fields. That is true. By the way, we work with custom fields with Fabrik's not a problem. But we were doing this before that. So we said, hey, we need to know these users that we're creating in our Fabrik application. Maybe it's for one company and we have multiple departments. I need to know what department they belong to. Maybe we're managing inventory, and I need to know what section of inventory that department can handle. So this user belongs to this department and can handle this inventory. So it gave us a way to tie information inside of our Fabrik application to the user, and let us assign more ways than just assigning just ACL. We're also assigning some other information that we can then apply to filtering information for our users. As well as all the time, we have, let's say like the private school that I was talking about. They want to be able to set up their own users. They want to set up their own teacher users. They want to set up their own parent users. Or they want, whenever a parent forgets their password, they want to be able to reset the password. But a lot of our clients anyway, we build them kind of a front-end interface because they get in the back end of Joomla and they're just like, oh, this looks complicated. So we create you front end. They just log in. We've got all their management tools they want, and boom. And so why not let them manage the users themselves? Let them change whenever somebody needs to reset a password. Let them go in and change that and send the client and say, okay, go log in with this password and you'll be prompted to change your password. We are inherently using Joomla's users. We are giving an extra layer there for your users to manage the users without going in the back end. As well as we can protect, and I'll show you that in here, where we don't let them set up any super users. Maybe we always keep the super users to Joomla user backend, and our front end management only happens with other levels of users, access levels. And then we want them, well, I kind of covered that one in the last one, which is where we want them to be able to manage some information by their user ID, but also by maybe their company. So we're giving multiple ways to manage what they can and can't do. So what do you need to be able to do this? First of all, you need Joomla website and you need to install Fabrik. If you don't already have Fabrik, if you have a Fabrik application, you might want to add this feature in because it might give you more capabilities inside of your application. And just so you know, if you only have core Fabrik installed, then you will have to add some elements in, especially if you want to copy what I'm doing in my demo, you'll have to add some elements in. If you don't have Fabrik at all and you just want to install core, then you also will have to go get these. If you go to our GitHub and you get our full Fabrik library, you will be installing all of this, but you may have to discover and install. But you are going to need the JUser form plugin. You're going to need the calc element, and I'll show you what we're going to do with that. Calc element's one of my favorite elements. The developers hate me for it, but I love it. We can do so many things. You're going to need our password element. Password element lets us do verification that they typed it correctly, makes them type it twice, tells us if it's strong or weak. And then we want the yes/no element. And that's just because a yes/no, it gives us a nice little yes/no button that's going to store ones and zeros in there. So we're going to get real nice, clean data in the back end. There are two more elements that we have that are very, very powerful elements, but there is no way I could cover that in this amount of time. But I do want to point it out. So if you start doing what I'm doing and you learn, then there will be cause for you to eventually use our user group and our access elements. So they do exist, they are out there, but get comfortable with even doing this at all before you start working with those. But it does, basically, you could give your users the ability to get a branch tree just like you see in Joomla and be able to select multiple user groups for a user from the front end. But again, that I would call advanced from what I'm going to show you in here. All right, so what are we going to do to start? To get started, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a Fabrik list. And this Fabrik list, by the way, I pre-built this because there was no way we were going to be able to get everything done in here. So I pre-built these things, but I'm going to go over all of them because I want you to see the type of elements I used for each of these. The elements that you see in that first column, those are elements that you really need to have in this list. Some of them, most of them actually, are going to be hidden, or several of them are going to be hidden, but you need them there because these are going to tie over to your Joomla user. I'm sure those look familiar, right? Block, user ID, what group do I belong to? These are things that we need to know about our Joomla users to create one. Now, we wanted more information about our people. We want to know their first name and last name. And why do I have full name and first name and last name? Because it drives me crazy that we have full name in Joomla users. Because how do I search for somebody's like, I want to filter everybody by last name. So we're going to create a first name and last name element, and then we're going to calc our full name from that. We're going to let them have a photo because we want to see what our members look like. We're going to let them put if they have social media links. And by the way, all of these would be different depending upon what all information you need about your users, right? I have one where we have a list of instructors. And so one of the things we have is what classes can they teach, which is tied over to a classes table. And we just say this teacher can teach these classes. So these other elements are all driven by what you need to do with all of these users. Now, in my little example that I've given here, like I've got address, city, state, zip, country, and you'll notice I have map. I did that so that we actually geocode their addresses. So we could actually now make a map visualization where we show the map and we show where all our users live on it. And we'll look at that in here as well. I actually already had one of those set up in my demo. So the settings on the, oh yes, sorry. Yeah, it's the terminology. Very good. Thank you, Bruce. Terminology. List is a table and element is a column in that table. Once you get the terminology down, then you can speak Fabrik, see? So the form plugin so remember, Fabrik's going to make a list. It's going to make a form, which is my input, output, editing, basically, of that table. And then it's going to make your elements. But on that form, we're going to install a plugin. Well, we're going to install the plugin, and then we will have the plugin available to us. And you can see this one's called JUser. The JUser plugin is what we're going to use to create users when we create a record on this table, okay? The fields that I told you we had to have, you'll see I've associated them right here with the fields from the Joomla user. I've associated to my table elements, my table columns that I have on this one. Now, Joomla user options. When we're done with this, this is the thing that I love the most about it. And this is, I mean, if any of you guys have taken care of Joomla sites over the years, you know it's going to happen. There's going to be that bot that hits and makes 1,000 users before you can stop it. And then you've got to go clean it all up, right? And that's because the Joomla user registration is open. If we switch and we use Fabrik to create our users, we can actually turn Joomla registration totally off. So that is no longer a way that they can create the users. They would have to then come through our Fabrik form, which is a much more complex form, right? We got a lot more fields there, things like that. This is not as readily, it's different on all sites. So, so we have found that it has cut down on those kind of attacks from our user, our clients that use this as their user creation. So now, once we've built all this, remember I said I want my client to manage this on the front end. I don't want them to have to go to /administrator and log in and then go to Fabrik and to list, or to have to go to Joomla and users. I want them to just log in where they've been normally logging in to use their Fabrik application and do the things that they need to do on the site that we've built them. So like in this example, and I built this example earlier this week for the London Jug. And that is, it was a book management. So we made a book management website. So we had authors and publishers, and then we created books. Those books were tied to the authors and the publishers, right? Earlier, I had done an example in here you can see of car club members. And so we put car club members in, and then we also then did a map of those car club members because we had their address and we geocoded them, just like we're going to do with our users here. So what we're going to do is we're going to make three different menu links here. One is our user management. This is for our admin. And for this example, I've made two new ACLs and 2 new groups. One called JoomlaDay user, just JoomlaDay USA, I think, and one called JoomlaDay USA admin. Those are my access levels, and I made groups to match those names, so it make it real simple. Our JoomlaDay USA admin can log in and manage users on this website. They are not a super user. They are simply a JoomlaDay USA admin, but I'm giving them the capability of doing this from their login. And then we're also going to make a public sign-up form. We've got to give people a way to come in and set up their user, right? And when we do that, I'm going to show you, we've got some cool little features. I think they're cool anyway, where we can auto-sign someone in. So they sign up and boom, we can sign them on in. By the way, I do not have CAPTCHA put up on this one because we were doing this as an example in here, but obviously I would recommend that. We can send them to a custom page whenever they're done. We can send custom emails to them and to other people if we want to, depending on the conditions of whatever they signed in with. And then we can do other triggered events. I'm going to show you that what all we can build on that form that would just tie into the rest of our application we built. And then, of course, after they created it, we still need to give them a way to edit their profile, as you would call it in Joomla. I think they call it edit profile. And so we're going to give them a way to go in and edit their profile as well. All right, just so you know, this is what was already set up in here before this. So the only reason I'm showing you this sample directory that we built before is because that where it has the publisher name, that table, we're going to use that. We're going to say that our users that are coming into this website are publishers. And so we want them to select which publisher they actually work for. So that's what we're going to do with them. All right, so now let's get this down out of our way and let's look at this website. And I'm sure I've timed out. I'm going to move, this one over here. And can you guys still see everything? I know it's going to be smaller now, but let's take a look. If anybody can't read something, please let me know, and I'll try blowing up in the browser to make things larger. Okay, so I'm going to start with Fabrik Lists. Now, like I said, I have preset these up because I didn't want us to take the time of actually building step by step. But if anybody wants me to show, if we had time at the end, I could actually make a list and show you how to make an element and all of that. So all of these, I'll sort by ID in these lists so you can see. The very last one that I've made, or actually not the last one, this one that I made is called AFAB _users. I like to use the little prefixes that push these tables up to the top of the list because when you are dealing with Fabrik, you're a lot of times going and picking which table. And so I always highly recommend never use the prefix that your Joomla table already uses, your Joomla tables use, because that's going to be confusing, especially if you start migrating data between places. Make these so that you know. And I always like to use numbers on my prefixes. So like this AFAB members was one app that I did, and then I did this other one that was AFAB 2, and then I did an AFAB 3 test to show somebody something. So again, that's just me. You will come up with your own. Ignore this one. I was showing somebody how they can tie to other tables inside of Joomla, but we will not do that in here right now. All right, so we have this AFAB users. And remember, I gave you that list of elements that we were going to do. And if we go right here, we go to our elements. I'm going to select by the users form. So now I'm only seeing those elements. Let's go ahead and expand this so hopefully we can see them all in one page. Yep, perfect. All right, the date and time, or the date time element and the ID element are automatically generated for you every time you get a little bit larger. Yeah, let's just do this. So we'll have to scroll a little bit. Is that better? Easier to see? Okay, good. So the date time element here and the ID, those are auto-generated by Fabrik every time you create a list. Those are generated for you. And we're actually going to use those later on in some manner. And so I would leave these on, even though we are going to have a user ID on this table, I still would leave the independent ID of Fabrik's table on here. We actually have a way for you to match those if needed, but anyway, I'm digressing there with a more complex issue. But all right, so we also have on here like first name and last name. These are just regular fields, as you can see. But then we have things like block, which is what we would have in our Joomla user too, right? I'm using the yes/no plugin. And what the yes/no plugin does is it just gives me a yes/no trigger. As a matter of fact, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, let's just go to the front end here. I've made a user called JoomlaDay USA admin. Let me log in. It's this person. I remember my passwords that I set up on everything. Here we go. All right, I'm going to go ahead. We don't need to save that. I'm going to go ahead and show you that. So this user, I'm going to back up just a second here, and I'm going to show you. I told you that I made 2 access levels. I made an access level called JoomlaDay USA, and I made one called JoomlaDay USA admin. This admin right here, also, if we look at our user groups, we have registered, and then inheriting above registered is JoomlaDay USA, and then JoomlaDay USA admin. So I can give JoomlaDay US admin, they'll inherit everything that our other users do, but we're giving them a little more power, because what we've done is on our management menu here, which is the book management menu, I have made a menu item that points to the Fabrik list that I just showed you called user management. And so that's what we're seeing here. Let me split these aside right now. We're going to use that other one in just a second. When I go to user management on the front end here, you are seeing that, right? Yep. Okay. When I go to user manager, you can see users. Oh, we're blowing this up, so it's really kind of clunky now. We're going over these. We would be able to hang on. I'm gonna lower this down for just a second so you can see what it should look like. I should be able to see first name, last name, their username, their photo, the company, which we're going to fix because we want that company to be tied to this list of publishers that we have right here. So you see all these publishers. So I'm going to go back to my user management. What country they live in, if they are blocked or not, the group they belong in, and their user ID. Now, remember, I'm logged in as the JoomlaDay USA admin, so that's why I can see these. I want you to note that I only see 2 users here. If I come back to the back end of Joomla, though, and I look, I actually have 4 users in here. This is my super user that I already had created. When I created Joomla, you have to have 1 super user, right? So this was my super user when I created it. I also had another user that I was showing authors can edit their own listings. So I already had this user set up. When those 2 existed prior to me making my Fabrik list. Now, I could have, when I created the Fabrik list for the first time, pulled them in. We'll look at that setting in the plugin. But instead of pulling them in, what I wanted to do was I didn't need to move that author one. And I didn't want to have any super users managed through my Fabrik list, because then this would be opening it up to the outside. So I don't ever let them manage super users from this. I only let them manage what they can do, which is these groups. They can't make a super user because none of these people are super users. Okay. So I just wanted to get that clear up front, that I would still, if I had another, if Bruce says, hey, I need to be a super admin on this site, I would come back as a super user and log into the back end and make another super user. I would not use this management tool for that. This management tool is for other type of users, right? Your clients and below is what we'll call it. All right. So these elements that we've created on here, let me go back to that, because what I want you to see is the type of elements that we made. And this is basically, again, remember, elements are columns. This is the type of column, the data type that we're saving inside of there too is affected by what type of plugin we're using here. Like JDate is going to save in date format, right? An internal ID is going to be an integer, things like that. It's auto incrementing. So we're setting with these plugins, we're setting the type of column you're going to get. And so we also have, let's go here. Let's take a look at creating, as a JoomlaDay admin, I log in and I go to my user management here. I can say I want to add a new user. When I go to add this new user, here's all these elements that we have over here. So I want to kind of talk about these, because as an admin, I'm seeing the whole thing, right? I can see block. This is the yes, no element I was telling you about. It's a simple button display, but it stores either a 0 or a 1 for yes and no. They can actually select groups here. Remember, they can see super user, but this person's not a super user. They can't make a super user. And I would not have as many, well, they may have as many, but they would be more associated with what my application was for them. I've got several applications mixed in here, but let's say they want to just make a JoomlaDay user login for someone. So we'll come in here and we'll say that this is, let's see, Bullwinkle. I was trying to remember what I did download some little pictures to make some users with. So we have Bullwinkle here. Now, what I want you to see is, as I typed bull, you'll notice on full name, I got the word bull. And as I'm typing Winkle, as I step to the next one, it's going to fill that in. This is called a calc element. I love the calc element. So what we're doing with the calc element here is I'm filling this field. I left it visible for you because I wanted you to see what I was doing. But normally, after I know that it works, I would hide this element. They don't need to know that I'm putting those together to put into the Joomla user table, right? They just need to put their first name and last name and let me see those. But I wanted you to see what I was doing here. So this is a calc element here. And I am saying the full name is going to equal this element, first name, with a space, and this element, last name. And I need to watch those. So this is an Ajax calculation. I'm saying yes. So as I type in these two fields here, it is going to calculate and build this for me. Okay, so it's a pretty simple use of the calc, but it's easy. And now we know we're actually getting their full name for Joomla because Joomla wants their full name. Now I could cheat and I could just say send the last name to full name if I wanted to in my association plugin, but I want it to be matching what they have here, their first name, last name. I'm going to send the full name. So this is their full name information. And we'll go check and make sure that this happens when we submit this. And then we'll put in a email. By the way, I also, I wanted you to be able to see username so that you would know what was happening here. But I really prefer to push people to use their email as their username. So I normally would hide that full name, populate it from first name, last name. I would have them put their email address in. I would hide username and I would populate it with the email address. That's just me. I like having emails as logins. Now, I'm going to put in an email address here. And by the way, when you're testing, if you have a Gmail, just a quick little note, if you have a Gmail, this is my Gmail, Robbie.Adair, right? But you can always put a plus anything after your Gmail. So you're using your same Gmail over and over, but by me putting plus something, it tricks the forms to let me do multiples with the same email. So you don't have to keep coming up with what's another email I can use to test this so I can have multiples. So you can use it with anything, testing Joomla users yourself, testing WordPress, whatever. It's a really cool trick. They'll all go into my Gmail so I can check if I'm shooting emails back, I can check what's coming back to me. And so you could just keep coming up with more and more of these. Now, again, this is our username, and I'll go ahead and put a username in here, even though I would prefer this to be the email, but we're going to put an email, a username. Now, this is our password element. And remember, I told you that this one was that's one you do have to go to Fabrik, and I'll just really quickly just show you guys where you can go on Fabrik and download things. When you go to our Fabrik website, if you go to download Fabrik, you can obviously download Fabrik, but you can also search. You can see I searched for JUser here last time. And then you can see what elements that we have. And so here's the form plugin right here. And then you just download it. You do have to log in. You can make an account for free. And so you can log in, make an account, download this, and it's all free. All of our plugins are free. So I also downloaded the password one. The password one does this. I have two different fields with a little bar in between here. So I can put in a password and look, it doesn't like my password. It's not giving me a green. It's saying this is weak. It's still going to let me do it because there's no restriction on doing that, but I could. All Fabrik accounts are Joomla plugins. Wait a minute. The reason along the one field name is so that there are people in one name. Gotcha. Good to know. Well, we are going to push this in. And so I guess if they wanted to leave, well, I don't have any of these fields required right now. I obviously would make these required, but for our example, I didn't need to. And so you could, if you thought you were going to have someone who didn't have a last name, we could make that questionable, not required. So I've got my passwords here. I'm going to go grab a photo, and I'm using the upload element that does come in core. Here's Bullwinkle. And you'll see that is this file upload right here. So it's a photo, it's a file upload. And I'm just going to open that up just so you can kind of see some of the settings. You can say where you're going to go. This is our default. We need to really change that, I guess, stories. But anyway, that's the default. I normally would put this in, like, let's say user photos or user or member photos or whatever I'm calling it. And then I can tell it that I want it to show this in the media, and I even show it in the form if I wanted to. You can also generate thumbnails when you do this. I'm not generating them right now, but you could generate thumbnails, put them somewhere. You could put a prefix or a suffix on them. And you can also change the allowed types. By default, we use whatever Joomla's allowed types are, but if you want to be more specific on an element, you can limit them. So you could say you can only put a JPEG here, or only put a PNG here. So you could limit that. All right, I'm going to just close that. I wanted you to see it so you know what it was. All right, so we've got this selected. And then they, we can let them put, whoops, I don't need to redo that. Okay, oh, whoops, I do need to redo that now. I unselected, let's do this. And I'm not going to fill out all of this, but you'll see that they could put a bio information. They could do Facebook and they say like friend me as their label, and then they could put the link to their Facebook and follow me and put Twitter link. So this is our link element here. And so that is this one right here. That's our link element. And then phone number. I'm using a regular field, but I did want to show you I'm using masking. So that way we can control the layout of the phone number. I do realize the layout I've got right there is a US number. And so we might want to change that layout if we're going to be international, or if we're going to be in a certain country that has a certain number of digits, we might want to change that. And that's using masking in our elements. Now, company, this is where I was telling you, I actually want this company to be one of those publishers. And I haven't done that yet. So we're going to come back and do that and we'll change it. But for right now, I'm not going to put anything in my company and we'll come back to it. I did want to show you this. We have our address. So we've got a map here, right? This is the map. It's Google Maps. And my Google Map element is looking at these other elements that I have. So for geocoding, I'm saying to use the elements. And then I just go through and I pick. My address is the address element. My city is the city element, state, zip, country. And then you can say, do you want them to, when they're done typing it, hit a button to find themselves on the map? Or do you want to do it as you type? I'm going to do as you type because that's what you can kind of see what's happening here. And you can also set reverse geocode, which means it'll, as you move the pen, it'll actually change the address for you. So if I go in here and let's say we're going to put this, he's going to be in Canada. Oh, wait, actually, let me do United States on this one just so I can kind of drill down on this. I don't have it really set up to do all countries. I would do states and provinces as opposed to just state and things like that. So we'll start with the United States. Now what it did is it's centered to the United States. If I zoom out of this, you'll see what it did is it just centered on this country, right? And so then if I go and if I were to type Texas, I'm doing this backwards on purpose because I want you to see as it moves. Now I found the center of our state, right? If I put in the city, it finds the center of my city. Now I have to zoom back in for you. And then if I were to put my zip code, it would find my zip code area, right? And then I could even granular go and put in my address. This is my business address. Don't try to come and visit me. It's not my house. And so it has actually found the business address, right? If I were to pick this up and move this, let me zoom out just a little bit. That's the coffee shop I love. If I were to move this, you'll see that it changed that. So it does have reverse geocoding, but we don't need to use that right now. Let's put that back. Okay. I want you to see the map tool there. Now, because I'm the admin setting up this person, I could go ahead and block them. I don't want to, but I could, if I didn't want to have to give them their password, I could make this password some generic password that I'm going to send them, like change me or whatever I wanted it to be, right? And then I could say require password on first login. And so that would push them through the normal Joomla process of resetting your password on first login. So that's what this is. I'm just going to go ahead and create this one. So this is Bullwinkle, and we're going to save him. Now, we should, there we go. It did two things. It would have done two things. Had I done this from my public side, it would have logged Bullwinkle in. I'm coming as my admin, and so I'm just logged in already. But so here's our new user. Now what I want you to see is here's our user. And if we go back here to Joomla and we look at our users, here's our user. Bullwinkle, his username, the user group is proper, the email is proper, looks good, our username is proper, he's enabled and activated. Now, let's just say Bullwinkle, he made me really mad. He made Daisy Duck really mad today, and she's like, yeah, Bullwinkle cannot log into our site anymore. So she could just simply go in here and edit Bullwinkle and say, yes, let's block Bullwinkle. He does not need to be in our site anymore. If I look at my user management here, there he is. He is blocked. And by the way, that where it's going to that welcome page. We're going to change that for Daisy, because Daisy's going to get irritated always having to go to the dashboard whenever she makes a change here. So we'll fix that. So now if I refresh the users over here, though, you'll see that Bullwinkle is now blocked. Okay. So she can control that. She can control that without ever going in the back end of Joomla. And so you can give a lot of control to your clients. They could go reset people's passwords. They can block them, all of that from their own management, as well as, I've kind of left this on so you can see it. They could actually export this out to CSV if they need to compare to some other internal stuff. So they could actually get this with all of the information about them. If I were to just view the details on Bullwinkle, so I'm not editing him, I'm looking at the view, you'll see that all of that data that we saved about him is in here, right? And I could make myself a little list. Like, for instance, if we look at these club car members here, now this is just a list, like I have a list of everybody, right? And I could make a custom layout. This one looks a little better because we've got some columns going. I could also, because things are geocoded, I could do something like this, which is a map where I just look at their geocoded. So this is all of those car club members. This is looking at their geocodes and plotting them on a map. And I actually also put on there if they paid or not. That's why some are green or some are red. So you can color coordinate your tabs according to some sort of query that you want to do. Now, let's look at this publishers list really quickly, because this publishers list, we've got a ton of publishers in here. I don't know, 150 or so. So I want my users to actually belong to a company. And right now I don't have companies on these. So we have a list in Fabrik that is publishers. So we're going to go to our elements on this user sign up that we've just created here. And we are going to go to company element right here. Right now, it's just a regular field. We're going to change this to be a database join. I'm watching my time. We're getting close, I know. So we're going to make this a database join. When I change this, you'll see that our options down here change. By the way, I'll just point out right now, we have tab options here. We have options over here in Fabrik on almost every view that you're in. So you have a lot of options to look through. But we're going to go here. We're going to find our publishers. In this table, I want to store the ID, right? I just want a number in here because I'm linking over to another table. I'm joining over. And so on here, I'm going to show the name of the publisher in this. And this is going to be a drop down. So it's going to render a drop down. Now, I haven't set those on these others because I had not set up this field yet like that. And so we're going to go back and we're going to edit these as the admin right now. And then we're going to create a new one and select a company. So I'm going to go and say that this one, now you'll see my company is a drop down and it shows all of those publishers from that other table. And so we'll make her belong to one publisher, and we'll make we'll make our other two belong, and then we're going to go make a new one as a brand new user. And let's go edit these really quickly. Now, the other thing that's really cool about this is you will be able to sort your users in many different ways when you have a list like this. I'm going to make two of these work for the same company. So we're going to make this one also work for Becker LLC. By the way, those are not real companies. That's all just Mockaroo data that I pulled down to use as demo information. Okay, so now I'm Daisy Duck. I'm the admin. I come in here and I want to sort by last name. Guess what? I can sort by last name. Let's say I want to group by company. I could go in here and group these users by company. So you can see I've got one under this, I've got two under this. So it gives me a lot of flexibility for the way that I look at these users. And I'm not even turning on, we have advanced search, we have search. You've got a lot of different ways that you can do this. But yeah, I just wanted you to see that you can show whatever you want in here. All of these elements over here that I'm saying show in list, I could show something else. If there's some other thing I need to know about this person, then I could turn that on and show it in this list, okay? Now, let's look at, because I'm logged in as an admin here, right? So let's just stick this back over here. Now, let's look at this. Remember those the block and all of that I saw when I was the admin setting up a user. I'm here on the front end of Book Sisters again. I'm not logged in, so I'm just a public user. And oh, I did want to do something. I'm going to show you what I did up here on that top menu. I made an element called sign up. And all this sign up is a menu item to our form. So it's to our Fabrik form. So, you've got lots of different things that you can link to. So I'm linking to a Fabrik form, and I picked users as my form. Now, what I want to do too is this should have been set to guest. That was kind of goofy. I made it public. It should be guest, right? Guest meaning no one's logged in. They see this. Once they're logged in, they shouldn't see that anymore. So we're going to make it guest access. Okay. And so we're going to save and close this. Now, on this page, let me refresh that just so I have my ACL change there. I'm going to go to the sign up form. Guess what? I have almost all the same fields. And by the way, I would have, like I said, I would hide this one, and I would like to rewrite that one and hide it. So I would hide it. But we'll go ahead and hide this one just so you can see it still functions. We're just going to make it a hidden field. Let's go to our elements. I'm almost done, and then you guys can ask questions. I hope there's some questions. Let's see. Let's go to our full name, and we're going to say, make this hidden. So now let's just refresh this page. So this is more, and by the way, I know this form is not pretty. I did no design work on this whatsoever. It's just a base form. So they can put in their first name and last name, right? So we've got the Bad Wolf, who's also, he wants to become part of this site. And so I'm going to use my little email trick again. And we'll give him a username, and we will do a password. And I'm using really crappy passwords. And this is where I would normally put CAPTCHA on this form. Definitely recommend CAPTCHA on this form. And yeah, let's put the Bad Wolf on there. And again, we would put all this information. I'm not gonna deal with that right now. I'm just gonna pick a company. So you see, they will see a list of those publishing companies they can select from. They say, oh, I belong to this company, right? They can put in all of their information. Let's put them in Canada, just so we have somebody in another Canada. Let's put somebody in Canada. Well, I won't drill down. I'm just going to put them in the country. And now we're going to save them. Again, I would probably want to make these fields required, right? You can make whatever you want required. Now, this is I just filled that whole form out. Hopefully we did a little reCAPTCHA, and it went boom. I didn't have any, if something didn't validate, it would have stopped me and said, this isn't right. And I could have fixed it and submit it again. So it just sent me in. I could turn this message off. I don't want to see this message. And it sent me to the user dashboard. And by the way, if any of y'all want to go to this website, you can go and sign up, and it'll send you to this little dashboard. Now, once I'm in this dashboard, what if I'm like, oh, I didn't want to be Bad Wolf. I wanted to be Big Bad Wolf. Well, guess what? We can edit the profile. I need to show you this, though, because you need to know when you set this up. So we have our user menu. I've turned off the basic ones, the Joomla ones, and I've made my own. Edit your profile. And what I'm doing is I'm sending them to the form, the user's form. But on the Fabrik options, you'll see that you can do a row ID -1. And what that says is -1 says, hey, I want you to filter this by their user ID. But you have to tell them the name of the user ID field. That's user ID. So if I go here now and I'm logged in as Bad Wolf, I edit my profile, and here's my profile. It's pre-populated everything that I put in there. And wait a minute, before we save, because I want to go over here, I want you to know that if we refresh our users right here, there's our our Bad Wolf, right? And we'll look in Joomla. Let's close that. Let's look in Joomla. Let's see our user here. Image. And here's our user here. And then if I go change this to Big Bad Wolf, I'm going to save. If I refresh here, we'll have it changed there. If I refresh here, it has refreshed here, as you can see. So we're letting the individual user now edit their profile if they want to. Now, I have one last little thing. It shouldn't take us but a few minutes, but I have to show you this. You set up all those elements. Remember, I told you there is a form plugin that you have to have. This is the key to the whole magic right here. Under Forms, go to your user form. On the Plugins tab, you will first say, I want to add one. And when you add a new plugin, in the drop down, you'll see JUser if you've installed it. Okay, now let me delete that one out because we don't need to make a new one. We'll look at this one. Our JUser plugin. Now, by the way, with all of our plugins, you have control over when these things happen. So in other words, do you want this to happen in the front end and the back end? Maybe I want this to only happen if somebody fills this out from the front end, right? Maybe I don't want it to happen from the back end. Maybe I want it to happen on both. Maybe I want this to happen only on the first time this form is submitted, or maybe I want it to happen when it's edited, or maybe I want it to happen when both things happen. So on this in particular, I could say new, but I want you to know that these are here, because that where I was telling you, you might want this to do cool things, like do certain triggered things. Like maybe when somebody first sets up their user, I want to do an email, and we have an email plugin here. And I want to say on the new email, I want to shoot an email over to, and I can grab the publisher's email. I can get really fancy and do a little eval here and say what publisher to say they belong to. Go grab the publisher's email off their table, send it to that publisher. So now this person just signed up. We can send an email to the publisher and say one of your employees just signed up as a user here. So you can get really cool, and you would only want to do that on the new one. You want to do it every time they edit their profile, right? So on the J user, and I showed you this in the slide, I had to go and associate all of these with my fields. So this is seeing all my fields on my form. And so I'm associating those here to the Joomla fields. I am bypassing the Joomla activation. Okay, so I'm bypassing those things. You don't have to. You can use Joomla's stock email that Joomla sends out whenever you create a user. You don't have to disable this. You could use it if you wanted to. I just do. You could also make that if somebody's making a user in here, it's always forcing a password reset. So you have a lot of options here. I normally bypass all of those unless I've been given a spreadsheet full, and we might want to reset password on all of them when we import, things like that. You also can set the default user group. So like right now, if any of y'all went there, and I hadn't looked to see if anybody made any, if anybody went there and signed up, they would automatically be placed in the default user group, okay? If the admin goes in to make somebody, she has to consciously change them to make them an admin. They're going to by default be a J user. Okay, a JDay user. And you can also whitelist, and this is where you could say they could be any of these groups, but so they can't be a super user or whatever. So you can do that. Also, the last one here. This is important if you have existing users already and you're wanting to pull them over into a Fabrik list. You can synchronize your users. And this will do it if my user table I just created and it was empty, mine's not empty now, but if it were empty, I could turn that to yes, save this, and it would automatically go grab all of the users from Joomla, put them into my Fabrik, all of the elements that exist, right? Not all the other, it doesn't know that. It would fill those in, and then you could go edit those users or email your user and tell them to log in and fill out the rest of their form. So you could synchronize the users that already exist there. But remember, I don't like having super users in there. And so if I do that, I synchronize the users over, and then I turn this feature off, and I go through, which is, so the first time I do this, it synchronizes my users. Then I turn off delete users. If I right now were to, normally it's like this, and you would probably want to run this way, delete users, because if Daisy, the admin, deletes this guy, as opposed to just blocking him and says, I'm going to delete this user, if she deletes the user on the Fabrik table, it's going to automatically go delete him off the Joomla table as well. So he's just gone, right? But maybe you don't want that. You don't want them to ever be able to delete. You could turn that off if you want. I turn it off if I've synced all the users over. I turn off delete off of the main Joomla, so I can delete them off of Fabrik. I delete all the super users off of Fabrik, and then I come back in and I turn this on. So now any other user that gets deleted will be deleted off of the Joomla table, because I just don't like putting the super users on there. This is something we just added, the sync the primary key. You can run without this. You really don't need it. We had a special case, really, is why we did this. But if you're starting out fresh with a whole new Joomla site, there's no users and all that, you may want to sync the primary key. And what that means is we would make the primary key on our table match the user ID. So it will skip numbers in there. It will not just be an auto incrementing. You have to turn off auto increment. It says it in the instructions. We have a lot of instructions. Always check the instructions, because we might have told you have to go do something else to enable this. So check the instructions there. Okay. Wow. Okay. I think I have pretty much made it through here. So I'm going to go back to full. Oh, wait. One more thing. See, I always remember one more thing. The other thing that you might find cool, you can stay up there, Benjamin, it's fine. I just wanted to show them this. So one more thing that they might find cool is, remember these publishers? I'm tying to those publishers with these users now. Let's go to this. And if I wanted to, I could actually go to my publishers list and I could show that related data. So if I go here to my list and I go to publishers and I go to, come on, my data tab and I go to related data, it knows that the users here are related, right? And so I could say, yes, let's just show this related data, and I could show it on the list too if I wanted to. And let's just do it on, we'll do it on the list for right now. Let me save and close publishers. What that means is, not from this side, let's look in the back end. I could turn it on the front end. Here, we can look at the manager. Daisy has a manage publishers here. So on her managed publishers now, what we just did is we added this column, users. And so it shows how many users belong to each one because it looks at the related data there. So I just wanted to show you guys that really quickly. We did it with our books to authors too and stuff. So, so you have related data that's happening there for you to see. And if any of you want to try, you can log into this website. I will blow it away. All right, time for Q&A. Boom. And do we have questions?
Yeah, we have questions, a lot.
Okay.
So it's just us. You have 1 minute left to answer 20 questions. Does Fabrik provide support integration with payments options, e.g. for membership applications, as you mentioned?
We have a Stripe plugin, and we are actually, I can't remember if we actually just redid it or we're about to redo it because they have a new API. I mean, it still works. We're still using it, but we're actually doing a new one too with the new API. But yes, so we have Stripe and we have PayPal, and those work great. We have one other, but it is kind of it's not a true authorized.net. It was like an off-brand authorized.net. So those plugins are out there. And then if somebody needs others, they normally contact us and we can just give them a cost for building a plugin to whichever API that they need to. We've had some really weird ones. That's why we didn't put them out there, but Stripe and PayPal are out there for you to use.
Okay. Can text field use rich editors?
Yes, you can use the WYSIWYG editors in our text areas. You can pick which one too.
So just a question for me, just you can use the internal editors from Joomla, right?
I can use what from Joomla?
You can use the internal editors from Joomla, TinyMCE and Code Mirror and stuff like that. Okay. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next question was, can you hide some fields on the registration, so to fill in the fields after the registration?
Great question. I meant to mention that. Yes, progressive profiling, absolutely, you can do that. So you can have a very simple little form for them to fill in. You just need that basic information, right? And then you can submit that and then send them to the dashboard. And then you can even have a little thing that just says, hey, continue filling in your profile, and send them to that full form to edit. The way you do that is you will make a copy of it and actually you wouldn't even have to, let me think about that for just 1 second before I say that. I would make a copy of the, I'm trying to think of the best way to do this. This is what I would do. Each element, you saw how on the elements, some of the elements only showed up for the admin, right? That's because on the element, I've set their administration level to JoomlaDay USA admin. So if I were to say, take the bio and I were to set its level to be JoomlaDay USA, but all the others, their level is public. So they can fill out all of these as a public guest user. Once they submit, then if we let them go edit the profile, they'll see all the other elements that were ACL'd for JoomlaDay USA because they are now belonging to that group. Does that make sense? So I would do that at the element level. So absolutely, yes. And we do that with a lot of clients. We will do a short little form to get them to fill it out and become a member. And then you can ask them to fill out their full details and just simply do it with ACL.
Okay. Next question is, do you always create a new user table, or do you use the hashtag user table from Joomla and join to Fabrik table?
I always create a Fabrik user table. do not actually use, in other words, you can actually go into Fabrik and you can say, make a new list, and you can select any table in Joomla and it'll make a list from it. And you can do that, but that's not the way to do Joomla users. And that's what we normally see when people start trying to use Joomla use Fabrik to manage their users. That's what they think they should do, but that is not what you should do. You do not go and select the Joomla table. You want to create a standalone table in Fabrik, and then we're joining it together with that plugin to the Joomla table. It's just cleaner. It's cleaner management.
Okay. The last question for now: if you change the field type, are the values converted? For example, if you have a text field and a number field, what happens with the values which are already there?
Yes, great question, because what I did with a little bit of a no-no in here where I had that company that was just a regular field, right? So it was a var text. So it's just varchar, I mean. So it's just like I could type in a company name, and I had 3 users in there. What if I had already typed in 3 company names and then I made that element a database join, which that database joins means it's going to put an integer in there. And I don't know if you noticed, but when I changed the database join and save, it popped up a message and said, I'm having to change this from varchar to int. So it changed my MySQL column data type. Now, it would not go back and correct those other companies. No, those 3 people, had I put some companies in them, I would need to go and edit them and then pick their companies. It would have blown, I don't think it would blow away the data. Once I open it, it would blow it away because it doesn't understand that in that element anymore. So in the form, once I edited them, if they had typed in right now, like if I did it in the database, it would still say company ABC. But when I opened up their record now with the form, and that's now a database join there, it wouldn't understand that. As soon as I saved, it would blow away that.
Okay.
Hope that answered.
So I guess that were the questions. So people really appreciate that you speak so quickly. So thank you for that.
Oh, good.
And thank you for the great talk. Are there
Awesome.
any questions or anything left? Where can they contact you?
So
do you have slides again, probably?
Yes, we'll put the slides out. I was recording this on my OBS too, so that way if it didn't stream great, I'll have a good copy, and so we'll put it up. So this will be available later on. And you could always find me if you Google Robbie Adair. It's me and a soccer player in Canada, so just pick me. But I'm at OS Training, Media A Team. I'm on Twitter. You can go to robbieadair.com if you want to. That's easy to remember too. So you can find me just about anywhere. Joomla Slack.
Perfect. Thank you very much for the talk.
Thank you all.
Perfect.
Everybody go download Fabrik and try it.
Yes.
That's what we want.
Yeah, we had a poll here. Seems.
Oh, there was a poll.
Yeah, I set up a poll to check.
Oh, you did.
You probably should.
And nobody answered.
Yeah, they do. 11 people on.
Oh, they did? I can't see the answers in mine.
You
show
have
results.
to,
Show results.
Vote.
Oh, I had to vote. Oh. Should I say what is Fabrik? Okay, there we go. Awesome. Cool. Let's see. What is Fabrik? So we had 4 people who didn't know Fabrik. Interesting. I hope that wasn't like scary. They've used it a couple of times. It's in all my projects and some. Cool. Awesome. Good deal. Well, I know Bruce Decker was in here. Bruce uses Fabrik a lot. Bruce has actually done some really cool stuff and shown us, and we're just like, wow, that's really cool. He did some cool templating using articles. It was really awesome. He's done some things where people have sent in, they can send in a document, and it'll like parse it and stick it into one of our elements. And so anyway, he's done some really cool stuff with Fabrik. We're like, oh, cool. Show us what you're doing in this one. I hope it can help you also, Anne. Okay, somebody has a question. What kind of fabric is it? It's silky smooth. It's soft. I have a texture issue, by the way, so I can only wear things that are soft touch. All right. All right. Well, hopefully we have.
So will you become a Joomla Stack Exchange moderator for Fabrik?
Oh, cool. What are the chances Robbie will do this? Well, I will sign up. As soon as I can answer all of my emails and all of my tickets, I will definitely go on there and see what I can do on the Stack Exchange. Actually, I have used Stack Exchange myself. And by the way, our Fabrik forum, I didn't even say anything about that. The Fabrik forum has years and years of answers on there too. Okay, cool. I'm clicking on that link now. I will take a look at it afterwards too. Awesome. Thanks, Mick. So yeah, the forum is great. I mean, seriously, half the time I'm like Googling questions myself and I find the answer on Fabrik's forum. I'm like, really? There it is. Good to know. So yeah. Yeah, and we have a wiki as well, and we have we have a handful of diehard Fabrik fans that help. They go in and update our wiki and tell us, oh yeah, this page was out of date, and we went and updated it. Bruce has been fabulous about doing that. And we have, like I said, a handful of others. We have a Slack channel with kind of our Fabrik experts out there that contribute code. They help us with stuff. They help us moderate the forum as well. And so it's a massive forum. It's a massive wiki, and I know you're going to find some stuff that's out of date. There's really no way we can keep it 100% up to date. And now we're also, looking down the throat at Joomla 4 too. So that's going to mean a whole Fabrik 4 information up there too. So it's going to be good times. Good times.
Perfect.
All right. Well, I think we only have a few minutes, so I'm going to go network for a few minutes before we have our closing. Well, Dorothy, right now we're working on a Fabrik 4, so we have it forked, and we started working on it during the alpha stages, but we kind of put it on pause because it was totally different every alpha we were working on, and so but we are going to go back. Our primary goal right now was to make sure that nothing was going to change in 3.10 that was going to break anything. Earlier today, Brian and Yannick both 100% said, no, if it works in 3.9, it'll work in 3.10. So I'm holding them to it. So we should be okay. We hadn't found any major issues, but we hadn't had time to deep dive testing. We have some sites that we'll put in it and see how they do. But yeah, I mean, the goal is Joomla 4, but if it works in 3.10, we definitely probably will not, Fabrik 4 will not drop the same day as Joomla 4 by any means. We will have to have time for testing. And we will also advise any of our current applications, especially some of our applications are huge. And so those clients, we will tell them this is going to be a longer process for them to move most likely. And so we will gradually move them over into 4. But since 3.10 is supposed to be supported for what, like 3 years, I think?
2 years.
2 years? Yeah. So we'll, if it's a brand new build, then, and we've got Fabrik 4 out, we'll build them in 4. But if it's current clients or people that are out there that have, I mean, you just can't imagine the size of some of these Fabrik applications that are out there. It's crazy. And they're in enterprise level companies, and they're tied to all kinds of crazy legacy systems and stuff like that. And so it'll be a bit of some of these things will be a lot to redo. I had some things in Zoo that I actually moved over to Fabrik myself years ago, by the way, Dorothy. I mean, now I would do it in Fabrik because I know Fabrik so well, but I did take some things that I'd done in Zoo and move them over. But then I've also just worked in Zoo. I mean, Zoo is a good product too. And I had some clients that had some stuff in there that they needed help with. So, I mean, there's other products out there, and I never tell people Fabrik's the only answer. I just say, if it works for you, then great, build away. It's a really cool tool once you get to using it. All right, good deal. Well, thank you all, and I will see you in the closing.
Yep.
All right. Bye. Thanks a lot, Benjamin.
Bye.
Appreciate it.